Welcome back to Ferocious. This is Dad. Today I'm going to be talking about OGEN. Before we move on with the video, make sure you drop a like to this video to help the channel grow, subscribe, and turn notifications on. Without further ado, I'm going to go through technical analysis to this company here. Then I'm going to go through financials and then what I think about the stock. So we get to see here on the 1 month, 1 day perspective that the MACD is actually curving in downwards. And that is actually continuing on. It doesn't seem that have recovered yet. Volume has picked up from the day before, but still that is a warning sign. The other warning sign that we have is the ADX is above 50. It's around 57. And we've seen a little bit of a downtrend coming in from the 4th of August all the way to now. Another thing that we're looking at here is the willing percent R. It was oversold, but it's marching right now towards neutral. We do want it to be oversold to get the maximum results for this profit. So momentum here looks like it's actually losing in the momentum. It's at the lowest momentum it has for quite a little. Now the stock is in the trading action zone between the 10 SMA and the 30 SMA where reversals are likely. It is still above the 200 SMA and the 50 SMA, so that still makes it bullish while the 10 SMA is above the 30 SMA. So the moving averages do look bullish and it has a chance of a reversal, but the ADX and the willing percent R and momentum and MACD all signaling a warning. Moving on towards the 1 hour perspective, what we get to see here is that the willing percent R seems to show that it's actually overbought this moment. ADX shows in a little bit more of a sloppy movement, but the MACD shows a little bit of a recovery, at least into the extended market on Monday. Momentum seems to have been a little bit sloppy, going up and down a little bit. In terms of unbalanced volume, it seems that it did have a little bit of a massive dump happening in around 10 a.m. and then recovered nicely back during the day. Stock price is above the MACD, but here's the bad news in terms of moving averages. It looks very bearish to me on the 1 hour scale. Price is under the 200 SMA, under the 50 SMA, and under currently the 30 SMA is above the 10 SMA, which is also bearish. Now moving on towards the moving averages, when we get to see here in the moving average band in cyan and the purple in the middle, that the stock is in the bottom moving average. And what you expect it to do is for it to kind of oscillate between the 1.04 mark and the 1.16 on the bottom half, or all the way to 129. Currently the price is sitting in a 106, so very close to the 105, 104 mark, bottom of the moving band. Now moving on to supports and resistances, and then we're going to move on towards trend lines here in a minute. So what we get to see is that if there is a resistance on 108, but what I want to try to do here is try to move that 100% a little bit down to here in order to determine basically what's current resistance. So we'll put 160 at the 210, 212. There we go. So the current support would be sitting in a 0.96 on the Fibonacci support. Above that is around 0.97. Above that, we're seeing a 102. Above that, of course, it's going to be the $1 mark, since it's just a full number where compliance would need to be met. And then we're seeing a resistance happening in 106, then a Fibonacci resistance in 108, and then another resistance in 113, and then we're seeing another one on 114, 115, and then Fibonacci resistance 18, and then we're seeing 121, 124, and then 128 coming in towards the supports under the 96 cents. We do see it all the way down to 0.91, 0.95, 0.91, and we're seeing a 0.86. Now going on towards trend lines. Now nothing significant on the 1 hour scale, so what I want to do is I want to go to the 3 months 1 day in order to determine that kind of trend line. And what we're seeing here is that trend line that was formed has been broken before. So even if we pull back down, the trend line that is currently holding is literally the last trading day. So that might be a little bit dangerous, and what might actually be forming here is a heads and shoulders, though that is a bearish pattern. It has low reliability on that heads and shoulder, but nonetheless it is not a good trend that is showing on, where it's going in a more of a downtrend that started around the 31st. But if you think about it, the downtrend started 23rd of July and did have a bullish kicker, or maybe perhaps a bull trap, and then fall back down. I'm not bearish about the stock, but I'll show you exactly how it played. Moving on forward, we're going to look in towards the company's insights. So first things first, we're going to do the quarterly report, and you get to see from March 31st, 2020 to December 31st, 2019. The current cash equivalent has decreased, and basically your total assets for this one has decreased by $4 million. We're seeing here total liabilities has increased a little as well, and we're seeing in a little bit of a total loss, a little bit higher. So basically, we're looking at 133 versus 127. Now the total sharehold or equity would be 100 and almost 13 million compared to 17 million, and the total liability and shareholder equity is around 15.5 compared to 9.7. Now coming in towards the earnings and whatnot, you get to see the total operating expenses has almost doubled there, and we're seeing EPS of exactly the same of 0.11, but that's diluted because the number of shares that is used is around 150% extra, and you get to see we're comparing 5.2 million compared to 3.3 million. So the company has lost a little bit more than the last quarter. Now comparing in year per year, we get to see very much the same information. Total operating expenses went to around 16 million compared to 10 million, 160% increase in that. And then we're seeing, sorry, not 160, sorry, 60% increase on that. And we get to see a little bit in terms of loss from continuing operations. That seems to be increased, and the net loss common shareholders has increased by 37.43% at a 4.239 million extra. So it does seem that they had troubles with their financials, but here's the good news: it is a COVID-19 vaccine player. So this company previously was not working on a vaccine, but did have an interest in terms of the NIH created SARS-CoV-2 vaccine based on a protein vaccine technology. So I'm going to go here through quickly, basically saying, mentioning a little bit of the different phases that they're going for. So basically, proposed clinical trial pathways are 3 to 5 months for technology transfer from NIH, and then 3 to 6 months for phase 1 clinical trial, and then we're looking at 3 to 6 months after that for phase 2 clinical trial. So we're very much sitting in on this phase here, where you expect a PR between the kind of transition between different strategies. There has been updates that are being sent, but I'll share that in a second. Going on towards different things, for instance, I'll go on through their pipeline, but nothing very much significant on there. The oral OG716, that I have to double check if it has actually been, yeah, that's the only one that seems to be continuing on their website. Everything else seems to be delisted, although we're still looking in a little bit in terms of a bit more PR on there. And so basically what we're expecting is that on they said on the second quarter on 2020, they're going to file the IND. Timing of filing IND is subject to having adequate available capital to complete the transaction, and so we expect a PR regarding that as well, and that is a positive PR. So now moving on, nothing here much significant that I would think of. Of course, AG013 received an FDA fast track, but I do have an update on that later on. So as I said, the pipeline here is for the OG716 is preclinical, going to around phase 1. So that would be a positive PR they'll be getting. Now, moving on as well, they did receive a patent on the 4th. This patent is for methods for regulating weight and size of animals. So basically that is a positive news as well. I'm not sure, I didn't see a PR relating to this one, but they do have an additional patent. Moving on to latest news on the 27th here. So this was basically something related to exercising warrants at 90 cents per share. And then the next one is regarding the COVID-19 update, and what they basically said that right here announces that the National Institute of Health created stabilized prefusion spike protein COVID-2 ST licensed by the company has generated neutralizing antibodies in mice during the immunization against SARS-CoV-2, the virus that caused COVID-19. So it seems that there is positive news there, and said basically in addition they said, we are delighted that our license not significant, but going all the way down to company's lead vaccine candidate TerraCovid-2, and then we are particularly pleased to see a balance of Th1 and Th2 response, which is one of the most critical parameters used in both safety and efficacy of the vaccine candidates. It seems to be good news there as well. Moving on, this is on 13th, so this has played already. This is for, I believe, the annual meeting happening in August 21st at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Matters of vote is basically electing off the board member, the directors of the company, non-binary advisory vote on executive compensation, issuing off 9.2 million shares for exercising warrants, ratify selections of the company independent auditors, and basically any other matters that might arise. Things to notice here is that there's no voting for dilution for additional shares other than the warrants. And of course, they don't need a reverse split since the price has been above $1 consistently. So they're good on that. Now moving on to one of the latest things. This was all the way back to the 10th. This was just basically they're announcing of the COVID-19 vaccine candidate and announces of termination of its clinical development program AG013. And if you remember, I did in the presentation mention the AG013, and that has been terminated. Yeah, so moving on. How would I play this stock? So it's very much more significant that I want to see it hold its price a little bit more above $1. I would like to see an accumulation phase. So somewhat similar to this one here, where you see an accumulation phase where this price does show a very much strong support. Of course, there would be news if the news of the COVID-19 vaccine does hit fairly quickly. This price would run, but I would expect it to at least until then hold a little bit off its price significantly. Now it is forming in multiple bottoms. So you technically can trade it from 106 and up to around 1.2 or so, but I would rather go in for the long game and wait for it to accumulate. It's definitely a hold for me if you have a little bit of a previous or a smaller at price entry. If you bought towards the top, I would wait for you to accumulate a little, stay above $1 perhaps sometime next week. Of course, after the MACD does kind of stabilize on the 1-day perspective here, and this actually goes down to perhaps oversold again and momentum for it to fix up a little, then I'll definitely average down, or I would very much consider buying it. I do mention my entries on Twitter, so make sure you follow me there. What do you think about this ticker? Make sure you mention down in the comments below. Please subscribe and like, and you have a wonderful day.